So, Michael, what is your position on Ethereum now? Are you bullish? Are you bearish? What's your outlook?
I think you can divide the entire crypto world into crypto assets and crypto applications. And so crypto asset networks are meant to store a long duration safe haven asset for a decade, a century, a millennium. And Bitcoin is, of course, the leader in that space. I think crypto application networks are meant to do lots of different things. It might be DeFi, it might be NFT, it might be operate stable coins or provide very flexible application rails. Ethereum clearly is the leader in that space. I think that there's a whole set of investors that are interested in investing in applications. That would be different than the class of investors that are looking for an asset. For example, corporate treasurers or widows and orphans insurance funds, they just want to store their money for 100 years and they don't want complications. But, you know, the world's full of tech investors and venture capital investors that are always looking for the latest, greatest, cool thing. I think that, from my point of view, the application space it's going to be a bit riskier because of more centralization, more complexity, and more competition in the space. But, you know, that means that there'll be higher highs, lower lows, and a lot more fireworks along the way.
So you still clearly maintain your position that there's no comparable asset to Bitcoin, that Ethereum is in a whole other category. As you just stated again, it's the unicorn categories, you referred to it before. But are you at all interested in getting into the unicorn application category? Is that something that you would personally invest in or use MicroStrategy cash to invest in?
No, I don't think it's appropriate for a corporate treasury, and it's not really appropriate for us. Our business is to acquire and to hold Bitcoin. I think that crypto applications would be appropriate for crypto venture funds and crypto-specific technology investors.
Do you have a position, though, on where you see the price of Ethereum going?
I really don't. I prefer not to opine on things that I am not an expert in. And I have a lot of very strong opinions about crypto asset networks and the right architecture for a crypto asset network. For example, I think that a proof of work architecture is appropriate, if not critical, for a good crypto asset network. I don't have strong opinions about what's the appropriate architecture and then what's the likely outlook in the crypto application space. I think there are too many variables. It's, again, as I said, it's much, much more complicated.
Okay, well, you certainly have a very strong opinions on Bitcoin. That is clear. And you've been advocating for the so-called Bitcoin standard. What do you mean by that?
I think that there's $500 trillion of monetary assets in the world, split between currencies, bonds, real estate, instruments, equities, precious metals that are being held as money, et cetera. Most of those are fiat derivatives, and so they derive their value in part or in whole from the expectation of future fiat cash flows. And I think right now in the world, you have a set of strong currencies losing 1% or more of their value a month, the US dollar and the euro, and everything pegged to the dollar and the euro. And I think you've got a set of weaker currencies losing 2% of their value a month. And then you've got a set of currencies that are collapsing, that are losing 3 to 4% of their value a month. All of the companies and the bonds and the commercial real estate in those economies are, of course, losing their monetary value because the currency that they're valued based upon is weakening. So the Bitcoin standard is all about converting your long-term treasury assets, that is your savings account, from a fiat derivative asset to a non-fiat derivative, a non-sovereign store of value that doesn't derive its value from cash flows in the future. And you know, the 19th century solution was the gold standard, and the 21st century solution is the Bitcoin standard. And so that's what I mean when I say adopt a Bitcoin standard.
Well, Bitcoin has, of course, generated a lot of attention and a lot of animosity recently. Everyone from Bill Maher to Charlie Munger is attacking it very viciously and very vocally. Let's start off with Munger, who, of course, is the Berkshire Hathaway vice chairman. And at the latest annual meeting, Michael, he called Bitcoin, and I quote, disgusting and contrary to the interests of civilization. I want to play this clip for you and get your thoughts on the other side. Let's watch.
I don't welcome a currency that's so useful to kidnappers and extortionists and so forth, nor do I like just shuffling out a few extra billions and billions and billions of dollars to somebody who just invented a new financial product out of thin air. So I think I should say modestly that I think the whole damn development is disgusting and contrary to the interests of civilization.
Contrary to the interests of civilization, Michael, it doesn't look like Munger is in any hurry to adopt the Bitcoin standard. What do you say to that?
I think they're baiting a 97-year-old man, and it's colorful. The mainstream media wanted to comment. They didn't ask him about TikTok, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft. They didn't ask him about any of 100 other new technologies. If you want to understand Bitcoin, you reasonably scratch the surface in 10 hours. You start to understand it in 100 hours. I don't think Charlie Munger has spent 100 hours studying Bitcoin. So I think it's kind of unfair to poke him with the question. But I'll state for the record, isn't Berkshire Hathaway a generation behind all technology? Despite the fact that Warren Buffett is best friends with Bill Gates, Warren Buffett never invested in Microsoft, and Microsoft was founded in 1976. And so they never invested in Apple until 40 years later, and then it was a person that worked for them that invested in Apple. And they didn't invest in Google when it came public, and they passed on it every year since. So I think that this many controversy is just because Bitcoin is the fastest growing, most disruptive force in the world right now, objectively speaking. It went from $0 to $1 trillion in 12 years. That makes it the most disruptive technology in your lifetime, in my lifetime. More disruptive than Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google. More disruptive than anything in our lifetime. Maybe if we went back to the automobile and Henry Ford in 1910, we might find something that changed the world in a decade. But not, that doesn't come along often. So all these people are getting poked and asked their opinion. When I'm 97, if I'm still working, if I'm lucky enough to still be alive and still working, if you ask me about the latest, greatest hologram simulation technology startup that's taking the world by storm, that's used by my grandchildren, and I don't quite get it, I wouldn't expect to get it. So, isn't Charlie Munger old enough to be your great-grandfather, Michelle? Do you go to your great-grandfather for investment advice on new technologies? So I like him. I like Warren Buffett. They've been successful, but they haven't been successful technology investors this century. And I would just leave it at that.
All right. Well, I'm not an ageist, Michael, so I do not necessarily determine someone's level of knowledge by their age, either to the younger or oldest side. But I get your point that Berkshire Hathaway has been very much a late adopter and not exactly early on the technology adoption curve. But I want to focus a little bit on this comment that he said that it's useful to kidnappers and extortionists and so forth. And the reason I want to focus on that is because it does seem to be an angle that other people may take in order to force some kind of harsher regulation on Bitcoin. We've seen Janet Yellen, for example, say that she's concerned that Bitcoin will be used to finance terrorism or used in money laundering. And then Turkey's central bank has banned the use of cryptocurrencies for payments. Turkey has now added crypto asset service providers